My name is Morse Flores. I am originally from the Philippines. I'm still a Filipino, but now I'm currently working as Human Rights Officer with the United Nations Office for the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and I'm based in Geneva. I got interested with the UN as early as a high school student. You know, I grew up in the 90s and the 80s, and those decades are full of crisis and war. It was in the 80s, it was the Gulf War. In the 90s, early 90s, was the Rwandan massacre, the genocide. It was a crisis in the Balkan. And those crises, you know, you see them on television live, broadcasted, on print, on a daily basis. And growing up in those years, you started to question what's happening here, and that young age. And then I realized I started to talk about the UN. I started to get to know the UN more and more, you know, as I go. So then I realized that at some point I said, what can I do? And then, and that triggers me to go outside of the Philippines. I wanted to see what's outside of the fence that is surrounding the Philippines. And I thought that when I saw this beautiful pamphlet about APU, which I've never heard before, and I saw and I've learned that this is a university, that half of the population are foreign students, including the staff. And then I look at the core values of the university that talks about respect for dignity, freedom, and justice, and said, that's my place, I'd like to be there. What really attracted me in APU, besides its composition that has 50% student international and a staff, I really like the fact that APU was only 2 years old when I came here. It was very new, there's not much in the university. In fact, I was actually offered, when I got my scholarship from the Japanese government, I had 3 options. I have put Tokyo University, Kyoto, and APU. And I realized if I go to Tokyo, I'll just be one of those students. Because before coming here, I was also an exchange student in Tokyo. And that's what I felt when I was studying in Tokyo. I was just one of the students. I said, no, I want to be a part of a community that I will be part in building that community. And that was one also of my mission when I came to APU. Not just a student, but to be a part of building a community that is trying to identify its own identity and its own place in the world. One of the first competencies is you're able to work with a team. But not only that, you are encouraged to live with other people. You know, in the UN system, you can't work as an individual. Second, communication. Communication is a very important competency. You use that skill on a daily basis, whether in oral or in written form. That includes listening as well. You better be a good listener when you work for the UN, because you will be dealing with different stakeholders, whether it's a government, with a civil society organization, with the private sector, with other UN colleagues. Another competency that is very, very important in the UN is professionalism. You need to know how to conduct yourself, whether during your work or outside of your work, or even how to cope with a stressful environment. You will be set into those situations or into those conditions. You need to know how to compose yourself and still diplomatic and professional. You should be interested to learn continuously, because you know, this world that we live is a very tech savvy. You need to know how to adjust, you need to be flexible. But most importantly, working for the UN is about integrity. I think in the UN, we value that so much that the people that you meet working for the UN, they're like people with a brand. In fact, there are people, and even including me, I would like to work with somebody that I just recently met, because when you hear them tell their works and their stories, you get so inspired by just listening to them. They have so much to offer, they have done so much. And you look at them and say, I'd like to work with you. And that's what we call personal branding. There are minimum qualifications, I would say requirements in the UN. At the professional level, there's certain years. For entry level, there's minimum 3 to 5 years professional experience in the relevant, in the relevant position that you are wanted to get in. You need to have a master's degree. Of course, there are also, it depends as well whether the position that you are applying is at the headquarters or whether at the country level, or whether it's a professional position or a national officer's position or a volunteer work, for example. But at the professional level, it is really those proficiency in languages. That is key in the UN. We have 6 official languages in the UN, at least minimum 2. So at least the most basic is English. You need to add French or Spanish, Chinese, Arabic, or Russian. 3 would be very good. I guess the first thing is you really need to know yourself. You need to know your core values. You need to know your strength. You need to know your skills. If you know that, you can go anywhere in the world. I was so clear with those even before I sent my first application in the UN. That sense of who you are, the things that you believe, the values that brings you your best of yourself. If you know those things, that's where you find out where to go and what to do. For those who doesn't know yet what to do, the world outside is huge. Japan is a good place, but at the same time, the world outside Japan is huge. I would recommend them to go for an exchange, for example, do volunteer work, attend conferences, or just even have a gap year if they need it. See the world, travel, the best education you could possibly have. It's good to live with your family, it's very comfortable, it's safe, but not until you challenge your own self and you bring out yourself in places that confronts your ideas, your values, your attitude, and defend it until for me, that's the only way for you to really put yourself in a ground and said, okay, I think this is what I want to do. I know that in my travelings, I realized that the path that I have taken is really the right thing for me to do. So yes, I think traveling and seeing the world is really a very, very good source of inspiration.